to take charge of the situation. Leaders of thought, young people, everybody must begin the narrative that there's no substitute for peace. Whether you're Igbo, you're Hausa, you're Yoruba, you're Igala, you're Chongai, it does not matter. What we need now is peace. We're not interested in who is right or who is wrong. What we need now is that everybody must take shape.
But even in discussing the issue of peace, what are the things that the proponents of peace, we need to break it down. What are the proponents of peace?
Peace in this sense is respect for constituted authority. There cannot be state within a state. The military or the government will not fold its arm and allow people begin to act, to undermine the authority. It doesn't happen anywhere. So regardless of our agitation, regardless of our shortcomings, we must respect the constituted authority.
Well, it seems like he wants to react.
Yeah. Yes, I think peace, they are ingredients that birth peace. Peace is just like a meal, but before you eat the meal of peace, there are some ingredients and spices that you use to cook that meal of peace. I do believe strongly, and I've argued on many platforms, that the issues, these are manifestation of abnormal state, and in an abnormal state we have different stages. Of course, we have the issue of failing. We have, of course, these are dysfunctionality of a state, symptoms of a dysfunctional state. We have a defunct state and a collapsed state. I think we are at that level of failing or failed state. We are citizens no longer believe and trust in the government, and when they no longer trust in the government, that spirit of nationality or oneness, the greed that defines a nation, you see that a nation is defined and sustained by a common belief and acceptance of the core values and principles. So if you are a German or I'm an Igbo man, I see the Hausa man that come, we trust ourselves, we have agreed to live together as one based on these values, based on these issues. But in a dysfunctional state, the government, or should I say, it's on both sides, both government and the people, there are some issues. That's why for me, I'm a strong proponent of the structure is always responsible for what you see. And if you must get these things, then you need to rework, just like you having a house and you see that there's a consistent quarrel in the house. You as the father of the house, you need to call the house together, come, what is it? It could be, as someone is living it could be that within the family there are some things that are not in order. So for you to arrive at that peace, for you to cook that good meal of peace, I think you need to touch and readjust the structure. That is why, of course, the discourse of restructuring comes again into play.
Well, your example about the father and his children sort of like contradicts, because we know also that some parents do not spare the rod because they don't want to spoil the child.
Yes, but when the son is consistently rebellious, a good father will say, come, what is the problem? Let's talk. And we are at that point of our national life when we need to talk, because every day we see people in constant disintegration, many voices. People are always wanting to talk and challenge the status quo. So you should ask, so why are these people rebellious of the status quo?
Harris Price.
Yes, it's actually good that you must talk to address issues, but you mustn't take the laws into your hand. Regardless of your agitation, it will always end on the table of dialogue. Where you push away dialogue, there will be a stateless society. And the moment we have a stateless society, anarchy takes charge. That is what I'm sure the government or the military is trying to prevent. We all have our legitimate grievances. You cannot rule that out, but we must use the right channel to address these issues. You can't declare a state within a state. I still maintain, because it's only a weekly that will allow that to happen. I have my own shortcomings, I have my grievances, but I must channel it to the right perspective. For instance, I always argue that we have a National Assembly that exists. What are they doing? What are they doing to address this rising tension in our society? Shouldn't they be speaking to government, to themselves? Shouldn't they be talking to the citizens? Why should they allow citizens to take up the issue of restructuring, the issue of marginalization? Why did we elect them into government when they can't address these issues? So the narrative must not be given to agitators. You understand? It mustn't be given to agitators. Agitators must pass through a channel. What is the channel? That is the structure I'm sure that Wet is talking about.
And well, obviously it's moving and shifting towards the second microphone because...
Yeah, I need to make the point very clear that, yes, he has his points, but the people is a central factor in every government or in any state. And not just the federal government. Now, we are not looking at government in terms of just the executive. Now, the issues we are having today that are unfolding every day tells you, of course, I've said it, that these are features of an abnormal state. You must correct the wrongs. And if you see that the National Assembly have foreclosed the issue of devolution of power, and also the president during his national broadcast said for now that anything that has to do with restructuring has to go. Yes, that was, of course, going by the constitutional provision. Frustrations are burning every day, and except you touch, and just like many scholars have said, the likes of Marx and Walter Rudney, who of course I align myself with scholars of those nations, though not at the extreme level, that if in an abnormal state, that if you must restore the state, that there needs to be what? Correction of structural defects. What are the structural defects? What we have? Because some of the issues that these people are agitating for, rather, have no business. The federal government has no business. If the local governments are working, most of these people, and I tell you, if there is good governance in place, most of these agitations will die.
Olive has been nodding.
I think that also brings us to the issue of failure of leadership.
In some quarters.
Yeah. I actually blame all this on the federal government. You know why? Because even when the local government fails, I think the state government should be able to hold the local government responsible. And if the state government is failing, the federal government is also supposed to hold the state responsible. Now, do you give allocations and you don't care what the state do with it? Do we wait till after your tenure if a governor embezzles money before we start talking about how much you spent and how much you embezzled? And then if the National Assembly, like he rightly said, has failed. I think the president now, who is the father, like Walt rightly stated, should be able to call the house to order. I mean, you bring your children together and ask them, all right, what is it that you want
there are instances where even when you call to order, you know, it's difficult to call to order. We have seen cases like that, even with the issue of the Boko Haram, where negotiations have had to take, years before they could even listen to, and they didn't even want to talk directly with the federal government. So what are we seeing? But anyway, let's leave that and move to the economic aspect of the curfews. Today we are having instances of challenges on the part of those who are affected by the curfew. Let's take a look at Jos, for instance, and in comparison to the situation in Aba. These are two extreme areas where you find a lot of agricultural activities in Jos on the one hand and massive trade in Aba. Can we have a comparative analysis on this? I mean, take a look at that. What could be the situation for most people sitting and residing there?
You know, the tragedy of war or unrest is that it hampers development. As we speak, for the past 3 days, schools are under lock and key in Aba. Hospitals, I'm sure, are relatively operating. Markets are under lock and key. Do you know what that means? Do you know how much has been lost? Do you know the psychological effect of not going to the market and getting what to eat? You know, these are the problems associated with unrest or war. If we don't address this, we'll have more of this, of the problems we're talking about. In just for instance, from nowhere, just in the recent years, what had been engulfed with unrest. All of a sudden, we were able to nip that in the bud, but now it's coming.
But in just,
again.
it wasn't a case of any situation taking place. It was just the governor trying to nip it in the bud.
Yes, from reports available, there were actually palpable tension yesterday. People were running around, shops were being closed, people removing their kids from school. There was actually tension in Jos. And I should applaud the governor of that state for promptly acting. Otherwise, I'm sure the story would have been different. So, again, essentially, there is no substitute for peace. War, it's never an option.
And we hope that other states will show an example.
Yes, by coming out to speak to the issue, not giving the reasons for this agitation.
And on the case of Aba, I really do think that we are playing with our economy, and because if we are really serious about diversifying Nigeria's economy from oil-based sector, then a state like Abia State, or let me just say Aba, the main town there now, should not be joked with. I mean, that is a state that can even turn to the China of Nigeria or the Japan of Nigeria and make more money from there.
It takes lives for the market to move. Yeah. It takes lives. So if the market has to be shut down to avoid the loss of lives and property, then it is important that that is looked into, isn't it?
I am not even talking about shutting the market now. I'm talking about not allowing this violence to fester. Okay. Trying to look for ways to ensure that normalcy returns, trying to ensure that at least business, in fact, not just that normalcy returns, but that governments try to put in resources to develop the town so that the people that harness the talents of youth there to build our economy. That's what I'm talking about.
Yesterday we made mention of the military and their role in Aba and some of the videos that were making the headlines. It was a source of concern that most of us, saw how human beings were being treated. As at that same yesterday, the military came out to make a statement and also made a promise to investigate some of these activities. Should that be commendable?
Of course, that is where the media has a very critical role to play in the development of any nation. Because yesterday when we were talking, it looks as if it was so tense. It looks as if some of us were being inciting or insightful. Well, you see, except we call for accountability from our leaders, they will not be accountable. So we as citizens, that is the position of citizen engagement now. I'm very happy, but it shouldn't go beyond that. It should go beyond that, rather, that they should investigate and see, because I read the statement as good as it was. When you read the last paragraph, you also see that the statement itself was a bit not too strong. It was like they are aware, of course, that these people have been going in propaganda. If you want to go and investigate, tell the people, let's not be too passionate. Let's be neutral. For me, it was disgusting. But of course, the military now, I must confess that they are being more humane now. They are trying to be more civil. In other times, you hardly hear that military coming to investigate its own people. We would like to see the end of the matter and ensure that those who are responsible, if it is found to be true, they should be punished and not be spared.
Well, if you're just joining us, this is Human Rights Radio 101.1 FM, and it's X-Ray. Here on this show, we try as much as possible to take a closer look at topical issues and try to see how we can analyze and make our own recommendations in our own little way. However, when we come back from the break, we will let you call us and make contributions on the matter. Economic situations, more shutdowns. Nigeria is grappling with the whole economic situation. If Aba goes down because of curfew, then a lot of exports activities with some of our homegrown manufacturing will definitely be affected, and that will affect you and I. We'll take a very quick break, and when we come back, we continue on X-Ray. Have a great time, and we'll be back.
Your right, my right, our right. Everybody's right is protected. Human Rights Radio 101.1, redefining broadcasting.
We declare that human rights are for all of us, all the time, wherever we are and wherever we are from. This is a matter of individual justice, social stability, and global progress. The United Nations protects human rights because that is our proud mission. And because when people enjoy their rights, economies flourish and countries are at peace. Violations of human rights are more than personal tragedies. They are alarm bells that may warn of a much bigger crisis. The UN's Human Rights Upfront Initiative aims to heed those alarms. We are rallying in response to violations before they degenerate into mass atrocities or war crimes. Everyone can advance the struggle against injustice, intolerance, and extremism. I call on states to honor their obligations to protect human rights every day of the year. I call on people to hold their governments to account. And I call for special protections for the human rights defenders who courageously serve our collective cause. Let us respond to the cries of the exploited and uphold the right to human dignity for all.
Human Rights Radio.
Welcome, my dear, dear friends.
Human Rights Radio. Your 100% effort is not good enough.
You know.
Give me 101.1 effort.
As the fourth estate of the realm, the media stands as the watchman of the nation. On Media Lab, we dissect the news items of the day through the men and women that bring the news to you to give you the full story. Media Lab, airing exclusively on Human Rights Radio 101.1 FM, redefining broadcasting.
Human Rights Radio.
Human Rights Station. Anya nwegi kewa ọbụla ma ọlị. Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, onye Mmong, Niger Delta. Hey, nke ahụ redio unu gbaa gburugburu.
101.1 FM Abuja. Human Rights Radio 101.1 FM Abuja. Tinye radio gị na Human Rights Radio Station Abuja 101.1 FM. Olu na-ekwuchitere anyị Human Rights Radio Station Abuja 101.1 FM.
Men isama abasere lọ. Ẹni Ọlọ́run jẹ́ òjò ìbáraẹni.
Welcome back from the break. If you're just tuning in, this is X-Ray on Human Rights Radio 101.1 FM. Today on the program, we're discussing a national issue and the things that bind us together. I think throughout this week, we've taken time to take a closer look at some of these things, the importance of Nigeria being one, and that cannot be overemphasized because of the importance of security, of lives and property, and the importance of Nigeria growing stronger every day and remaining as the most populous black nation in the world. I have with me this morning Harris Spice, Wealth, and the only female in the building, Olive. It's been a wonderful time and discussion so far. You can also be part of our discussion by calling us on 081 899 91011. That's 081 89 99 1011. That's the studio number to call, and you can be part of the discussion as we run through the program. My name is Peter, and we will let's take a look at some of the pockets of tensions. What are the reasons behind some of the tensions in some of these states? Why do we have a place like Plateau State having to grapple with issues of tension after having resolved to live together for many years since the last religious issues that prevailed that entire environment?
Okay, I think I will attribute this to our citizens' irresponsible use of social media. You know, people are circulating very gory and very graphic materials on the net, and before you know, the manifestation of this material is what you have in Jos. People are saying, oh, why are you killing our brothers and sisters in the east, so we have to also kill your own.
Hello? Okay, I'm sorry.
So we also have to retaliate, which is a very unwise decision to make. Just like I said, no war is going on in Nigeria. You know, it's just agitation, and the authority, it's up to it. Nobody should take the law, you know, onto its hand or her hands, wherever you are. The security agencies are up to task to address whatever it is.
Okay. Hello.
Hello, good morning, Peter.
How are you today?
I'm good. My name is Mike Change Advocates.
Good to have you on the show. Go ahead, please.
Yes. I would like to disagree with what this person is saying about the social media. Though it's a contributing factor, but the genesis of the problem is our leaders that have sidelined the masses right from time. All these things we are talking, the leaders know it. Come to think about it, somebody you know his capacity, maybe when he enters as a councillor or even a House of Rep member or whatever, any position, any political office again, you see the life change immediately. This thing, the difference, there's a saying that there's an extent you push a coward to, he'll be forced to fight back. That is what is happening. Whether we'll take it or we'll leave it. The leaders, okay, the senators had their saying now that the armies are saying in other states, they're now kicking on. So all this time that this is happening, what are they saying? And one thing, the part of the blame that comes to with the matter is true. The issue of holding our leaders accountable. We don't. When we see these people, somebody who is nobody, as soon as they enter a political office, it becomes the start to build mansion, right? The cast of millions. We tend to air them and all of this. We're supposed to ask, where does this come from? It is part of our collective resources that they are flaunting in our face. I used to put this proverb, this thousand proverb that the Dogeri, that is the palace king that stole the king's drum. Where will he beat it? But in Nigeria, here, the palace police will steal the king's drum and beat it right in front of the king, and the king will not say anything. That's what is happening to us. So the social media, the guys that are taking over social media to spread this thing is because of what is happening that they're expressing. Thank you.
And that was a reaction to Harry Spice's comment about the social media.
Yeah, unfortunately, when you put these goats you're pushing to the wall end up biting its fellow goat instead of the bigger goats. You know, the agitation you're talking about, who it's affected is the poor man. Why not direct, you know, your agitation to the right quarter? In this whole crisis so far, I'm sure no big man's son or what have been affected, but it's just the poor man.
Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Morning, how are you today?
I'm fine. Did you find somebody?
You're fine.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Please go ahead.
The issue on discourse. We live in a country where our leaders are the ones fanning the embers from discourse amongst the citizens. From the onset, we have always known that people can use the toxin. The reason why the federal government has deployed military, armed military, to the country is still not known. They do things, government do things, we are thinking about the consequences, the aftermath of the action. What prompted their deployment of military personnel to the country at the first place? Now, this government is down there and watching smart side effects. They are not being proactive. They want to defend their actions at all costs. Instead of being proactive with their activities, they sit down there, not to see the number of lives that wasted before they begin to do something about it. It's not that this government take us seriously.
Thank you so much, Ifeanyi, for your contribution. Ifeanyi is a regular caller, isn't he? Yeah. So we have rules for callers as much as possible. No profanities are accepted on radio, and that would include abusive words and radio unfriendly words as well. There are certain words that will not be accepted on our platform, but that's not in reference to Ifeanyi. Ifeanyi made a point there. Let's now go to other calls and see. Okay, we have more calls coming in. But then, what is your take about the social media and its responsibility in this wealth?
Yes, the social media has come to stay, and in this 21st century, the era of media convergence. But of course, it also has its challenges. Some of the messages and the videos you see, not all of them are true. Some of them are choreographed. So, in as much as there is press freedom, there is need for citizens also to be very careful on how you use the social media. The social media shouldn't be a medium for hate speeches and hate campaign and going to start new hate speeches. We need to learn from lessons. We need to learn. I think someone like Chiwenzo did say that Nigeria of today, or Nigeria, has always had the issue of famished memories. We've not really learned the ills of a civil war. We've not taken time to know what happened in Rwanda and translate, put side by side to know what were the effects. Because when J.P. Clark said we are all casualties of the civil war, it was not. We are still casualties today, because the evil, or should I say the evil of the civil war, some of them, because what is happening today is the issue of mutual distrust, not digressing from your point, though. The point is, in as much as we are going to use the social media, it should be for the promotion of our core values, our national values as well.
081-8999-1011. That's the number you can call us and be part of this discussion. Olive, let me ask you a question. Have you been to Aba before?
Yeah, I've been to Aba before.
And what was it all about?
Well, I've been to Aba severally. For me, I think that was why I mentioned the issue of trying to harness the potentials of youth there.
Good.
I went there for something else, but then when I got to the town, I discovered that there are whole lots of talents wasting in that particular city.
Now, so let's go back to the local councils and their responsibility in some of these things. We talked about the traditional rulers. What about the local governments? What about the other instituted authorities in that area? We also know that there were instances of where a road safety official was shot. Not just one, about 2 officials were shot by, a police officer that was attached to the wife of a politician. In that case, I mean, are we seeing any leadership example even from those regions?
Okay,
that's actually for Olive.
Okay.
Well, like I said before, there is need for the state government to hold the local government accountable to. Because of some of all these things are actually not just the issue of security now, because for security, the security aspect, violence cuts across the whole regions now. Like in Lagos, you get instances of school children being kidnapped and all that. But there is need for the state government to hold the local government accountable, and then in providing security. I know that local governments.
Hello, sorry, I had to cut you off. Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Please, am I on to Human Rights Radio?
Yes, you are.
Okay. About the topic of this.
What is your name and where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Lisbon Federal Housing.
And what's your name?
I'm Usman by name.
All right, go ahead and make your comment.
Please, this issue of POD and I'm begging in the name of God and in the name.
Okay, there was a network problem. You can feel free to call us up on 081-8999-1011. Harry Spice.
Yes, back to what Olive was trying to say is, when leaders abdicate their responsibilities, this happens. Very unelected people take up the mantle of leadership and they begin to mislead the public. In Nigeria, for instance, we have structures of governance. We have the local government, we have assemblymen, we have councillors, we have governors, we have deputy governors. These these are people that are supposed to speak for and on behalf of their people. But in our case, we have, opinion leaders taking up the role of governance, which is very, very dangerous. And in the course of molding this, of trying to shape governance, they now infuse their own personal sentiments and messages into these messages. And what do you have? What you have is the problem at hand. For instance, we cannot shy away from the reality that the 2015 election, part of the problem we're having, it's as a result of what happened in 2015. Immediately after the election, agitation started. And up to this very moment, the agitation continues. My point is that we should not allow, non-state actors take over the narrative of governance. Once that happens, the state becomes ungovernable.
Let me ask you a question now. If you were to trace the leadership structure in Nigeria, we had a lot of military influence. Does it have a role in what we're facing today in terms of the effects of violence?
Of course, it goes without saying. The answer is in the affirmative. But
sorry, we have a caller. Hello?
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, my name is Ghana. I'm calling you from Abuja.
All right, go ahead.
Most of the issues are treated by the guests of the studio, but I want to chip in that we seem to be solving new problems with old solutions. And what I mean is that the approach to this problem needs to be changed. The approach to this issue needs to be changed. Most of the agitation, not just from the east, even from the northern part, the Boko Haram came as a result of idleness. Most of the youth are not being engaged positively. So the other platforms, the naysayers have this platform presented to them, and it seems like a viable alternative. What needs to be done is that youth need to be rechanneled. Their energies need to be rechanneled. Aba, for example, is an economic hub. If the youth who make shoes, bags, and other things were being fully employed, even if they were earning 30,000 naira, they will not be using the energy in destructive means. The youth need to understand that from the local level down to the state and at the federal level, they need to ask questions. What are you doing with this money that is being allocated every day? The government needs to take a different approach to governance, and in no time we'll all be happy for it. That's my submission.
Thank you so much, and amen to that. We wish we will have a lot of changes in governance in this country. But Wealth, you were making a point before we took the call.
Yes, the point I was trying to make is the military from 1960, when the early 60s, when they intervened, changed the narrative of governance. Though we cannot at this time begin to always be crying about the military. Just like the last caller said, you cannot really differentiate politics and economy. Economy is the anchor upon which politics survive. Just like those elementary days in political science, when they will tell you politics, of course, the authoritative allocation of scarce resources. The crisis we are having is because of those resources, the scarce resources, being more scarce. So you see that people tend to clamor to partake in those scarce resources. You cannot. That is why when people like us said it is high time we began to engage more carefully on the issue of devolution of power. Devolution of power talks about economic prosperity, because if the person from down south or in the southeast is allowed to refine, or should I say, the minerals within his own community, he should be allowed to explore them, then pay tax to the federal government, so that there will be buoyancy in the economy. So now is the time when we engage more on the issue of devolution of power, so that everyone will have a sense of belonging. Because in as much as the scarce resources do not get to the man, even in the northeast, the northwest, he must have a reason to want to clamor.
What is the final analysis in terms of, because I want us to shift from that discourse now, in terms of the effects of the economic effects of curfews having been led by some sort of violence or tensions.
Okay, the point is, with sustained agitation, unrest, and curfew, there will be more impoverishment of the citizens. So the best thing is to keep aside violent agitations, adopt a more dialogue way of resolving these issues, so that people can be meaningfully engaged. You don't make money during war. You don't go to the farm when there's war. You don't go to school when there's war. You don't go to the market when there's war. So the advocacy should be that everybody must drop this tool of agitation. Let's speak through advocacy. Let's channel our agitations through writings, using our representative to get to government. We should begin to hold our leaders responsible and accountable for whatever a dime is given to them. When we shift our attention to the center, those at the grassroots will continue to abuse our rights, because allocations comes from the center every day. What has been the utilization of this allocation? These are questions we should begin to ask. We should begin to agitate for good roads. We should begin to agitate for good educational funding. My interest is not who represents me in government or who represents me in the kitchen cabinet of the president or the governor, but my interest should be that there must be road to my village, there must be road to my school, there must be road where I can transport my farm produce to the market, 24 hours power supply and the likes of it. I'm not interested in whether it's an Igala man that is the president of this country or that is the vice president of this country. I'm interested in what can benefit humanity, and that should be our language.
Okay, now I think I have a question for him. How does the common man on the street begin to hold leaders accountable, especially when institutions that are supposed to checkmate the activities of these leaders also fail? You
remember you elected these people into offices. There are town hall meetings, there are constituency meetings, there is the local government secretariats, you have the traditional rulers. How many times have you engaged these people to ask questions? The money that comes from Abuja, what happens to this money? The ecological funds, what happens to the ecological funds? Why are we being ravaged by flood? These are questions we ask. One thing, what the elites are doing is actually twisting our own brain. They pitch us against ourselves so that we cannot ask the critical questions. The agitators of this unrest are not poor, are not unemployed. These are well-to-do guys. They have dual citizenship. They can fly anywhere they want to fly to. But we are where we are. We should ask what happened to the Paris Club fund that was released to states. Have we asked? Imagine all Nigerians agitating on Facebook that my governor must provide. That also brings us to the issue of agitation. You must come out on the street to be able to air your view. Now, I can't walk into the National Assembly to tell the Senate President that so thing happened and then you're not doing it rightly and you should do it that way. You remember the dialogue of the deaf, when all of us are speaking, if everybody is speaking, who will listen? Who are you addressing on the streets? You are agitating for good of humanity by hosting flag of your own country or republic. I'm just saying. Okay. You are protesting on the street of Zaria by blocking the roads, forgetting that there are people who are legitimately trying to use the road to hospitals, to school. That is a very archaic way of agitation. Agitation is using the right channels to get to leaders. What is the right channel to get to leaders right now? Because sometimes you find out that even the leaders now, it's what we are doing on radio as we speak. We are saying that what happens to resources allocated for governance, that is agitation. That is asking questions. Our traditional rulers, what have we should ask them. Talk to these people. This is your community. They represent your community. What happened to what was given to them. This, when we write opinions in the newspaper, when we speak on radio, when we talk on the social media, this is holding government accountable. But when we take up arms, the government has a way of suppressing our agitation, because they say violence begets violence, and that is what we don't want to happen in Nigeria.
I pretty understand the arm aspect, but what I'm actually saying now is this, because there are times when you find out that maybe a particular political office holder has been fingered in one issue or the other, and then the political godfather or whatever in quotes comes in, and then you find out that they just play around the issue and then it dies down. How does the common man on the street feel when things keep happening like this?
But you should also remember,
because you mentioned that we elected them into power. Is it that we should just relax and say, okay, let's just wait for another 4 years and we vote out that person?
Understand the procedures. I mean, because a lot of Nigerians are not well educated in terms of what their rights are, and that's why I brought up the aspect of the military regime. Many people have this mentality that once you're in governance and you have an official car, and you're passing on the streets, that road belongs to the government official. That's the mentality because of the influence of the military. Another example is there's this mentality that once, I spoke about this earlier this week, if you have a flag, a Nigerian flag hoisted in front of your house, you've got to be a government official. Why? Because the mentality over the years has been that it must be this way. And then the issue of protests have never been accepted under the military regime in good faith. So many Nigerians have this mentality that it is not lawful to protest. So she wants to understand how the process works. If you want to protest, what should you do as a common man? Because we know there are laid down procedures. Yes. The police, for instance, must be informed.
You must obey the rules. For instance, if you're to protest, you need a permit from the police. What if the police stops the permit?
That is the question.
So now, meaning the protest as a means of agitation has not actually yielded any result. It always ends with crisis, more crisis for the system. So what we're saying now, as enlightened as we are now, we should take the message to our people. Let's begin to organize ourselves by asking relevant questions, starting from the local government chairman in our community. When we ask, what do you think should be done for this primary health care? This road that leads to the market, what do you think we should do? Are you saying that there's not been money coming from the federal government? When you begin to ask these guys, so these guys they actually know what is going on and they are more educated and enlightened. That is how to change the system. It's not by we no go agree, we no go agree. We've been doing we no go agree, we no go agree ever since, and we are still where we are. So we must change the narrative, we must change the approach. The approach is education, education. Unfortunately, we have a platform that is supposed to achieve us that, but we are abusing it, which is the social media. In those days, there are limits to what you say on radio, there are limits to what you write in the paper, but the social media, you have limitless limit. What are we doing with these things? Instead of preaching or educating the masses, we're using it again to fan the embers of hate, of war amongst us. Thereby, these guys will be laughing at us. I've never seen the son of the president, the daughter of the Senate president, or the vice president arguing on social media. But who you see is these same people that have no access to the Commonwealth, who are fighting themselves. So for how long are you going to fight their war if you don't take the
final comments from Wealth?
Yes, Nigeria, it's a simple appeal. Although we are not yet that strength that used to rule Africa and define most nations. But what we are, we are. It is not too late to seek a newer world.
That's true. That's true. Nice quotable, eh?
Okay, for me, I think my final word to Nigerians will be that the time to unite is now. Because we are actually gradually sliding down the dangerous slope of violence. I think there is need for us to unite. Like he rightly said, the common man is fighting the common man because of I don't know if there's anything else. Because of the big man. Please let us unite. We are all one Nigeria.
That's true. I quite agree with you. The unity is just the common word. Until we come together and speak with one voice, these guys will be playing 10-10 with our head, as they'll say in local palace.
Well, for me, I'd like to say thank you for being part of the show. Harris Spice, Wealth, and Olive. You know, thank you so much for being part of the program. Tomorrow is Saturday. We're going to have another package for you on X-Ray right here on Human Rights Radio 101.1 FM. Remember, there are no two ways about it. While we battle with one or two crises, curfew here and there, countries like Ghana are building themselves and staying united. Countries like South Africa are moving ahead of that position that we used to brag over. Well, the show is over. Have a great time. My name is Peter Kundu.
Your right, my right.